Let's learn about NBT data and see how we can read and write on the NBT for our block entities. Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. Now in previous episode, we developed our lava eating and lava generating, water eating and water generating goose. However, you saw that there is a very big problem, and the problem is that it will expand infinitely and it can ruin our world if we are not careful. Honestly, it can be a game feature by itself. I mean, it can be a challenge for the players to use the goo with caution. However, if they screw up even one time for one single block, their whole world will be ruined and there will be no other way to recover it, okay? Unless you have a backup of the world. So what if we limit the distance that these goos can expand? Of course, if they screw up, they will have a big headache now. However, we are limiting the expansion so that they can handle any screw up with effort and with time and recover their world. Of course, if it's lava, some things may burn. If it's water, I don't know, maybe redstone contraptions will broken, but they don't lose the whole world, okay? Now, to begin with, I added two different settings into our config. This is for lava blocks and this is for water blocks. Now going back into our goo blocks, let's start with, I don't know, water generating. It looks safe. What we need to do is to track the origin, and then on the tick method we can ask for the origin's position and see the distance between ourselves and the origin's position. To do that, we want to track a block position, and each time we are putting a block down, we want to add that original position to the block entity. However, here is a headache. If I tweak the goo base so that on the block entity generation I can handle it, you notice that I'm using my own library, and gblock is responsible of creating the block entity. Of course, I can call a super and overwrite this and then add something on the properties. That's doable, but it means that every single block entity in the game will have that properties as a header, and it's a little bit overkill in my opinion. Also, well, that's completely doable. However, I want to give myself a little bit of a challenge. If I'm not successful, that is my backup plan. So here, instead of adding the properties here, I will check in the tick method. The very first thing I want to check, I will say if properties dot has, let me see, properties is b properties dot field, yes, dot, let me see what we have here, get class, get field value, set field, and we don't have anything to check if we actually have the field. Okay, so how can we do this? If I want to add anything to the fields, I think I have an example on the actual G block itself. Maybe not. Let's check the block entities. So this is tickable. Tickable is expanding updatable. Yeah, there we go. Okay, you see that I have this dot properties fields, and then I will add a field. This field is responsible of tracking the is dirty value for getting the value and setting the value. So I will copy it. I will come back to my water generating, and at the end of the constructor, I will add it. However, now I will call it origin, okay? Origin, maybe, I don't know, pose, and then the default value. Now I have to provide a properties for this, or actually a variable on the class level, an attribute. So I will say private block pause, and we call it original pause. In the constructor, I will say original pause equals to block pause dot. I hope that we have something like a default value here, origin, and max xz is two options here, 0. Well, let's see, origin means that, if I take a look at that, okay, block pause at 0, 0, 0. This is not what I want, because there is a chance that we actually put a block at 0.0.0. Then we have max xz, that is a bit shifting, I don't know, maybe for the maximum dimensions at x and z. I will use that. There is a better chance of being successful there. So instead of origin, I will say max xz. And what is your problem here? That's an integer. Can it be null? Yeah, it can be null. Okay, and here I will use this dot original pause. So block entity goes into, and here we are retrieving the value, so original pause, and here we say that the block pause is going into there, so it will be original pause. Now at the start of the tick, after getting the block entity, and I want to make sure that I'm using the water generating goo block entity because our block entity in the library is type aware. Here I will get the pause, and after that I will say if the entity dot original pause equals to null. Now this is an internal class, and because it's internal class, I have access to a private field on top. Otherwise I would have a problem. Here I will say entity dot original pause equals to pause, and because I'm using a getter lambda here, it will behave properly by this. Instead of assigning the position directly, actually, I will say set origin with the pause. Now we don't have this set origin. I will take it, and on top of the class, I will say public void set origin that accepts a block pause. We call it pause. And instead of this, I will get the entity, put it there, remove this. All I'm doing here is saying that the original pause equals to pause. Now, why didn't I directly access the original pause here? Is that after assigning a new water generating goo, here we want to make sure that we will assign the proper position to the block entity. So we say if word dot get block entity at the site instance of a water generating goo BE, and we call it BE. Here we say BE dot set origin to the site. No, actually, here is the thing, entity dot origin. Why did I do this? Because now I have the ability to track the origin as I'm progressing forward. Okay, so up until now, I added a block pose as the origin of the starting thing, and when I'm adding new blocks to the world, I'm setting the origin on them so they know what was the position of the original block. Now I can say that before anything else, I will say if the get distance method's result between the position and entity's original pose is greater than the configs dot, this is water, so water goo spread distance, let's invert it, so smaller or equal, then I want to do this whole thing, and of course I need to get this word out of here. This means that if we are farther away from the config, we will just immediately set the block state to the water and get destroyed. Okay, however, I don't like to be water here, so I will just do this. So get the word on top, and here open a curly brace, close the curly brace, and switch the whole logic. I will immediately convert myself to air and vanish. Okay, and return. Now set block state. What's the problem with you? Word is not null. Okay, we'll get this on top of everything here so that we are properly ticking and checking the word, and then we say if the original pause is null, it means that it's the original block actually, so set the origin to the pause. After that we will calculate the distance. Of course we don't have this method. If we are greater than the config, just destroy ourselves and return. Otherwise do your logic, but before going forward, please make sure that we are setting the original block on the block. Now let's add this get distance. Get distance is a method that we want to set, so private, that returns, I think, a double, maybe an integer, I don't know. Let's start with integer. Get distance from two block pauses. One is pause, the other one origin. Now all we want to return is math.sqrt for square root of something. What is going on here is that we will do this math.power of pause.x by 2, and I will keep that one, minus the origin.getX power of 2, and that is one section. Let me show you the calculation first. This is the formula, and I was wrong a little bit. So we are getting the square root of different parts of the coordination being summed with each other, but we go with the position 2 minus position 1, then we power it to 2, plus the same deal with y and z. So if I want to fix my code, it should be minus origin.x plus, let me do this. I will get this whole math power and I replace it plus another replacement. The second math.power will use y and this one will return z. And I think that, yeah, it returns a double. So we will use, do I want to use integers or doubles? I will use double here and get rid of that error. So double. And now I have the ability to calculate the distance between 2 points. Of course, this can be a part of my library at gbase pause helper here, but I will do it between the videos, maybe in future when I have time. So up until then, it's going to be here. So if we are farther away from the origin, we will destroy ourselves and return. And we calculate the distance based on the mathematical formulas on wiki pages. And I assure you, if we go into the game and try it right now, it will work. Let me do this. Let me reduce the radius for the water to, I don't know, maybe 5. We don't want to go too far. And let's run the game and test it. So remember, it's water generating. So let's go into our test world. I said that we want a water generating. This is eating. The next one is generating this, okay? And I will put it here. If I activated it, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 blocks. Let's see. And as you see, it is stopped. So let's do the math. It got all the way to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yes, exactly the 5 by 5 radius. So it's correct. And this is why I said if we screw up in this world, now we have a way to fix it. Although the fix is really small and fast, but as you saw, we can already fix it. Now you may say, hey, why did I talk about NBT data at the start of the video? Well, think about what we have here. We have a field in our block entity, an attribute, but we are not saving this data to hard drive when we go out of the game and when we are coming back into the game. You may say, hey, why do we need something like that? It worked like charm. It's so fast that we don't need to do that. Remember, I reduced this radius. If I go for something like, I don't know, 204800, that's a very huge number. Of course, it's not making sense, but at that time, chances are that you wouldn't save your game. And if you want to save the game and go out and come back, guess what? Your block entity will not keep this value in memory. It will not serialize it. It will not deserialize it. It has no idea what this value should be at the restart of the game. So now it's time to talk about NBT and reading and writing, working with NBTs. What is an NBT? NBT was an old way of serializing and deserializing data on hard drive made by Mojang and the Minecraft development team. If you want to take a look at a very convenient NBT, you can go into the run folder, open the saves, and look at this level.dat. Just double click it. You see that it looks somewhat like a JSON file, and it's really close to JSON file. However, there are differences here and there. This is the top level NBT compound, and we will talk about compound. Don't worry. This is another compound, but take a look. We have a key and a value, and this is integer. Then we have a key and a value. This can be a double. I'm not sure. It looks like a byte. It's long, and then we have a list, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly how an NBT is being serialized on hard drive. And when the game starts, when you are loading a level, for example, the new world instance in the game, it will come and read this load.dat. It's an NBT. It will convert it to some class and then start reading the values from that class. And that's called deserialization. We have a video on serialization and deserialization. So now we need to work with this in our block entity. Basically, we want to add our information into the level.dat NBT. If I close it and close it and close it, somewhere here, I don't know where, but somewhere here, and we want to make sure that the game knows how to save this and how to load it and how to assign this value to the block pause when it's loading the game. This is the job of two methods. The first method is read NBT. The second one is called write NBT. And as you see, both of them has this NBT compound. Now, what is an NBT compound? NBT compound is a list of key pair values. This is the key, this is the value, and this is called key value pair. So a compound is a list of these. Of course, a compound can have another compound. It can have lists in itself. Things can go on and on and on and become as complex as you need. However, right now, our job is really easy. All we want to do is to serialize and deserialize our block pause in the game. Thankfully, Fabric wiki page for 1.21.5 has a section on NBT, and actually NBT serialization and deserialization is changed in 1.21.5. Before this, if we would want to write an integer, we would go with getInt to reading it and then this mumbo jumbo to writing it. Okay. However, we had two different ways of reading any value. Here is the example for the int. So we had this get int value, or we could try to read, and if we would fail, we would assign a default value. You see that it's totally changed now. And this is how we would read the compound, and this is how we are actually writing the compound now. Things, as I said, is changed because now instead of integer, boolean, blah, 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 we have the optional of them. However, we are not dealing with integers. We are not dealing with float or doubles. We are dealing with block pause. And this section is actually what is useful for us because it says if you want to encode or decode something that is codec based, you can use this. This is the way to put it, and this is the way to get it. Okay, let's see. So to put it, I will say that I have the NBT, so I will write the super. Then I will come back and say, you know what? I want this NBT to put something there. Put means writing into the NBT, and I will call it original.pause. You can name it whatever. As long as it's a string, it will work. And then I need a codec. Thankfully, block pause has its own codec. And finally, the value here is the original pause. This is as simple as that. Now, when I want to read it, I need to say, hey, original pause equals to the nbt.get, and we need to provide a string. The string needs to be the same thing, so the original pause. Then I need to provide the codec. Again, it's block pause.codec. However, this is an optional, so I will say .get, but I want to see if it's presented or not. So, or else. Okay, so we want to get the value, but if the value is not there, we want to assign null to the block pause. Because remember, at the start of the tick, we are checking if the original pause is null, then we assign ourselves as the block pause. This is a little bit of a fix. Maybe at some point it can cause a problem because if the data is not serialized properly, we have the chance to extend the radius of water generation, but as much as I see it, it will work because, you know, we are reading these data, we are assigning them, and we are writing them. So chances are that it will work. Okay, now we have a way to save and read our data, and that is exactly the point of this video. So for water eating, we just mimic whatever we have. We have a block pause, so let's open the things, and this is the block pause. Then we have this origin and the setter and getter for the values. And by the way, now you see how we can use the library for the fields. It's a very powerful concept. Okay, and actually if you want to, I can break it to new lines. So this is the get and this is the set, and I don't know why I have a pair of extra parentheses there. So again, this is the get and this is the set lambda. Okay, much more readable. Now we have the set origin, we have read and write NBTs, same things here. Then here we are adding this section right at the start of the tick method after every check before the sides. And yes, now I need to change the type of this to be water eating goo BE. And of course I need the get distance, but I will add this part first when we are generating the block. And now you see that I'm gonna repeat get distance in 4 different classes. This is again a good place to put it inside, maybe in the goo base, why not? As I said, it will move toward its own section in the post helper later, but here is public and it needs to be static now. So here we will have the goo base dot and goo base dot, and that should be it actually. Yeah. Okay, then we have the lava generation. Again, the same deal. We want the block pause. In the constructor, we want this field assignment. Then I have the set origin, read and write. Then we go into the tick logic. This is the origin and distance right before sides. And again, the entity type will be lava generating goo BE. And wait a minute, I did screw up here. No, actually, I just want to add it here. So extend, paste, and that should be it. One last time for the lava eating, and we are done. So you see that when you establish the base functionality, expanding it to more blocks are easy but repetitive. This is why I want to have a behavior tree system like for our tick logic. However, as you see, this is related to the block entity itself, and most of the job is actually for the block entity. It doesn't give me any advantage to have it right now, but in some cases, like crafting, like fluid containers or energy containers, it will help a lot. So this is lava eating goo block entity, and then setting the origin. Two things that I need to talk about. One, if you want to dissect this tick logic to its own external class, you need to encapsulate the getting of this original pause, because at that time, this makes no sense. It will not have access to the original pause directly, because original pause will be a private field. So you need to give a getter side by side to the setter, and that would be it. However, one more thing, when we are reading and writing the NBT, should we read and write to the super first and then handle our things, or should we handle our things and then call the super? On writing the NBT, the better approach is to call the super first. So let the upper hand classes do their thing and you add your own things at the end. On reading the NBT, it doesn't matter actually, because we don't go in order here. You are producing keys, so no matter where in the list you are looking at or where in the compound you are looking at, it will retrieve the data. The only reason I use super in the write first is that my data will be added at the end. Which one is this? This is new word 1. Okay, be careful which one of the NBT data you are looking at. So let me close the external library and go up. Here is the new word 1, and this is the level.dat. Let's run the game. Oh, null point exception. Cannot invoke math block pause dot getx because pause is null. Okay, there is that lava generating goo. Well, I did check it, didn't I? It's happening on line 77. Oh, wow. Okay, we say if original pause does not equal to null, then please do that. I think it will work, because if it's null, we will not write anything on the NBT, but then when we want to read the NBT, if we are not presenting the key, we will assign the null, and here we are checking if we are null, we will set ourselves. Let's go with debug mode this time. There is another way of doing it instead of using the null, and I'm talking about it as the game comes up. And that is here. Instead of setting it to be null, we can assign our position to be the default origin. And then when we are setting the new origin, we are overriding that position. And these two will work one after another, because this is happening in the same tick. So we are creating a new block. It will set its own position as the new pause, but immediately we are changing it back to the value that we want, and that value will be used in the next tick. That is an alternative way of solving this problem, and if you do that, you actually don't need to check for the null. I may do that, but I want to make sure that this is working, and I'm trying to show you the different problems that you may encounter. If it was a live stream, yes, I would stop the game right now and I would go back and write that code and see if that would work. It should work, but I'm recording a video tutorial. So the purpose of this video tutorial was to teach you how to read and write to NBT, and then showing you the NBT data and how our own custom NBT will look into here. So it's irrelevant of writing the proper code right now. Of course, I will fix that code to be the original position of the block and get rid of that null behind the scenes after stopping the video record. Because as much as I'm concerned, I hate to have null as the default value. It opens doors to null point exceptions, as you had seen already, and I'm trying to avoid it as much as possible. It didn't crash this time. Now, let me see if I can pause the game, save and quit to main, coming back here, and if we had changed anything. So let's see. It doesn't look like anything. 299, 304. Okay, what I will do is try to activate the block and run out of the game immediately to see some blocks that are being recorded. And remember this 304. There we go. I will save the game now, and I will come back here. Let's close this level here. And let's try to open the level again. It's still 304. Now, I know from experience that level.dat will not be changed because this is the NBT data related to the world itself and, world generation, the data that we need in the world. For example, who is the player, what is its inventory, things like that. The block data will not be saved here. Now, there is no easy way of finding that saved data in our saves world folder. As you see, we have a bunch of JSONs. These .dats has nothing related to our block entity. MCAs, I'm not sure. It can be inside one of these MCAs, but right now I don't have any way of looking at internals of an MCA. So how can we make sure that the NBT data is written? Remember, I stopped the game immediately when the first layer or second layer of the blocks was written. The easiest way to make sure that things are working is just to go back into the game. Because let me explain it this way. If this is the original block, no matter how far the blocks are generated, if we go back into the game and things are working properly, we should see a square of 5 by 5 from the original block. If the data is not being saved properly, now we go 5 blocks from here, 5 blocks from there, 5 blocks from there, and we will have more than 5 blocks radius. This is the easiest way of looking into data. And no, as you see, it's gone all the way to the end. Now, this is a problem. This is exactly what I said about having a bad situation. So let's add it and let's eat the lava. And even without taking a look at the NBT, I already know that it's not behaving properly, okay? Now, because we are in the debug mode and because I'm not gonna add any extra method, I can do this. I can change it to be the pause and I can remove this null point exception. I will put a pointer here and I will do the hot swap, okay? The hot swap will build this single one class, and when it's done and it's finished, it will pop up and say that, hey, I did build that one class. And then now I should be able to, you see, it says compile to classes. Then I can go back to the game and I should be able to use my debug point and adding the block properly this time. Okay, let's see. Now the original pose is the position of the block, and if I move one level down, it will just do nbt.put and it will go out without causing any problem. So I will continue, and now I should be able to do this. As you see, I stopped the game the moment we have 2 extra blocks, one here and one here. Means that if I have the proper saving on the NBT, I shouldn't go past beyond the 5 by 5 radius and will not go even by 6. So I will save and quit, and then let's go back to the game. And it's still going forward. Now, something in my NBT is not properly behaving and I'm not sure why. Let's do this. Let's use a lava eating goo and do it. And I will save and quit. Although I said that hot swap will work, but I'm not sure about that. And also I want to put something here like that. And instead of or else, I want to get the value directly. Okay, just get the block pause. I don't care if it's presented or not. It says that without is present check. I know that. And honestly, I don't want to fix it right now. I know this is a problem here. So let's go back into the debug mode because as I said, I want to see this in action. And as the game is coming up, I want to talk about something. MCA is NBT format. Okay, so we have a tool that is called NBT Viewer, and NBT Studio is an NBT editing application, the spiritual successor of NBT Explorer. Okay, let's see, going to release. Let's download the NBT Studio. Now take note, it says it needs .NET Desktop Runtime 6. If you don't have it, you need to install it. And as it's progressing forward, I need to have the game up and running. Now let's open this. And this is the NBT Studio, okay? I want to open an NBT, and yes, I can open it in MCA. So it has a search, so I can just do a search and look for my name, okay? So let's keep it inside the next monitor. Actually, let's take a look at the origin.pos. Do we have any? And no results found. Of course, this is one of the 6 MCA files, so we need to make sure that first we have it in the NBT. It should be there, and second, we are reading the correct NBT. So let's take a look at the other ones. And I just noticed it's original pause, and there we go. We have an entity that has original pause as 3 integers, and that is the actual original pause. Then we have the second one, and we wouldn't have any extra. You know why? Because we had 2 blocks that had this original pause. So we were actually writing it to the NBT 193, 205, 98. Okay, these are not the same thing. This is 194, this is 193. That shouldn't be it. When we are setting the original, I can directly call the write to NBT, but the problem here is that I need to handle the NBT and registries lookup, but I have a thing in my own library that is usable. Now, take note, tickable BE is extending updatable BE. It's not writing or reading to NBT. However, if I go to updatable BE, now take note, the updatable BE has this update method, and the update method is flagging ourselves as dirty, and we mark ourselves dirty. Now, if you want to write the NBT, this is the proper way of doing it. However, because I'm extending from updatable, instead of saying, hey, mark ourselves dirty, I can simply call the update method. And this way, not only I'm marking myself dirty, but at the same time, I'm syncing some data between client and server and stuff like that. So it's safe to say that this single line of code, being marked dirty or update inside the set origin, will force my data to be replaced properly, because right now our read and write are behaving. However, when we are generating the block, as you see, we are writing its own original block position. Okay, let me copy it. So this is a new generation, and let's compare the values. You see that we are moving 1 in the X and Z directions. And as you remember, I stopped the game when I had 2 blocks generated. So these are the original positions of those blocks themselves at the constructor. When I'm setting this original position, I'm not updating the NBT, meaning that I'm not forcing the block entity to write the new value to the NBT data. The reason is that I didn't mark the block entity dirty. So either if you're using my library, call the update. If you are not using my library, just call mark dirty on the block entity, and one of these two will force the block entity to go back and write the NBT data again so that the original pose will be set properly. I have to do the same trick, means that I have to hit the escape really fast and then come back to the game and see what is going on there. The only time that you are saving is when you are going out of the new world or hitting the escape button and pausing the game. My finger is on escape key. I will right click with the rod and I will try to escape the game as fast as I can. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's save and quit, and let's quit out of the game. Let's open the MCA file and let's take a look at original.pause. Now remember, we should find 4 of them. This is the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. Okay, let's take a look. The original pause is this. It's different. Again, it's different, and it's different. So we didn't succeed. The position is not being set here. And it raises a question, why should it fail? Because I'm setting the original on the block pause, and it will come back and mark itself dirty. You see what's the problem? We set a block there, and we check if it's instance of water. That's it. That's the problem right there for you. And this is the problem with copy pasting. So we are using water generating goo. Of course it's not. It should be lava generating goo. So water eating, I should have the same problem. Yes, it is water eating goo, and this should be lava eating goo. Every time, every single time that you are doing copy paste, please make sure that you're properly reading every single line of the code that you paste, and only then you will be sure that it will behave properly. So I'm doing the changes that I had on the lava generating all over the place for my others, and now we should see a proper behavior because I was failing on the logic. However, it was good to show you how you can track the NBT data if you have the NBT Studio. If you don't have NBT Studio, shame on you. It's really 2 megabytes, I think, and it's really fast. So If you still don't want to have it, that's okay. Just go and try the game logic. If everything looks okay, come back and double check your logic. Maybe you want to set it properly, but the condition is failing. And if that is the case, then sure, your NBT data is written, your NBT data will be read, but guess what? Marking dirty will never happen because you are failing the logic to set the origin. And that is when you will notice that, yes, I have a problem, and where is the problem? Let's run the game one last time and give it a try. Now, if you noticed, I did something really important. Before trying NBT data, I actually went down and wrote the logic for checking the distance and stopping at the distance. At that point, when that logic is working, I'm sure that everything is okay. So if I dive into NBT data now and it fails, the only option is that I wrote something wrong regarding the NBT serialization. So I'm not gonna bother myself with checking the logic for the distance, with the distance calculation, none of that. I already made sure that it's working. So my hand on escape key, go, save the code, okay, come back, reload, and search. This time we should have two. This is one, this is two. So let's see. This one is reading 93 and 97. Guess what? They are identical now because now we are properly passing through that logic to set the origin. And we are marking the block entity dirty, so when we go out of the game, it will save itself. And now, if I go back into the game, we should actually stop at the border of 5 blocks without filling the whole chunk with the lava anymore. Let's see it. It raises the question that why it fails when we go back into the game. It looks like it's correct, and why am I down here? I don't know. But somehow, for some reason, maybe I'm failing something because this shouldn't be the case. Oh, you know what's the problem? Can you even imagine what I failed to understand? Is that after all of that debugging and making sure that everything is working, I still failed to remember that I moved this value back to 128. So I'm not limited to 5 to 5. Okay, so let's wrap things up and recheck everything. We made sure that we wrote the NBT, and honestly, reading or writing regarding the super is meaningless because if you take a look at the super, it's an empty method, both for the read NBT and write NBT. It's empty. So either you call the super first and then do your job, or do your job and then call the super, it doesn't matter. Remember, NBT is orderless list. Means that you can read whatever you want at what order you want, and you can write whatever you want at what order you want. We made sure that we marked our block entity dirty. Then we change the value. Then we read and write that value. And here I'm checking if the block entity's value is null, assign pause. It's not needed now because we are assigning our position at the start, and the rest is okay. Now take note, each time we need to check for the proper block entity and call the set origin. And now if I go out of the game, the moment I close the game, because it's marked dirty, it will save. The moment I join the game, before any update method, the read NBT is called. And yes, I'm aware that I'm using the get without checking if it's present or not. And I could check or else null, and I think we have else. Instead of get, I can say or else null. It will work because it should never be null, and we should always have a value inside the NBT data. So just remember that if you're using configs, make sure that your config is working properly and everything should behave. Now, if I so want to, I can mimic this code for water things. Here I have or else actually. Here I should have or else, and here I should have or else. So that wraps things up. As you saw, the NBT Studio is really a powerful tool to debug your NBT data. The following of the logic using breakpoints and following the values, trying to understand what is going on, is another critical point. And if you fail to use NBT Studio or you don't know how to use the breakpoints, the easiest thing that you can do is to follow the logic of the game. And honestly, that wraps things up for this. I will roll back this one to 128 because now I'm sure that my block is working and my NBT is being read properly. I already checked it with the breakpoints and the NBT studios. I don't need to go back and forth between the game, instances, saving, loading. No, these tools are really powerful tools. If they confirm that your data is correctly serialized and deserialized, meaning that you are writing them correctly, you are reading them correctly, then that's it. You don't need to constantly be overprotective and OCD about things working or not.
If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun, everyone. Bye.